to be honest, this video is probably going to go on a little bit longer than normal because I've got quite a lot to get through. We've got a daily Kudus, we've got a daily Mohammed Kudus update, so that's certainly not to be missed. It completely contradicts the previous Mohammed Kudus update. We'll get to that in a little bit. What I want to talk about today, as much as anything, is, well, actually part of it has to do with Kudus, but part of it has to do with the news earlier on last night that the board, David Sullivan, Kretinsky, are going to inject their own money in to fund this transfer window. A goody gumdrops, happy about that. But what I feel that's done is it's cleared up a question that I had about Graham Potter and his initial dialogue and his initial negotiations with the club about his transfer budget this season. I did the video this morning, I actually recorded it quite late last night. And now I've had time to think about it. Something has occurred to me, which I want to share with you and then get your thoughts on it as well. I also want to say a massive thank you to somebody. Let me just tell you what's happened, because I've been given, basically, this box of goodies here. Now, it's from somebody called Jack, who is a subscriber, like you guys. And what's happened is Jack has got in touch. He's written me a lovely letter. And Jack has got in touch with Gio and got my address, conniving and sneaky, the pair of them, by the way. And he's basically sent me a bunch of treats for Zippy, which I thought was just really, really nice. Now, the funny thing is, he must have sent it before I did the video yesterday about Zippy, because that was last night. He wouldn't have had time, and I've not featured the dog on this channel for ages. If you've not seen the 60-second news roundup, right at the start of it, you can go and have a look. Zippy's on there. And he's just sent me all these treats, and somebody... Well, not somebody, it's called a postman, actually. A postman walked to the front door this morning. I thought, hold on, I haven't ordered anything. This looks a bit fishy. It was fishy. Just this box full of stuff. Basically, loads of... They're fish treats. They're fish... Look, fish treats for the dog. I can prove it, Jack. Look, he's actually already had one of those, wolfed it down. Just loads and loads of stuff in here. So, I wanted to give him... just a little plug and a little thank you. So thank you for being, well, a West Ham fan. He's giving it the company. He's giving it the company. I'm just going to cover his name there, but you can probably see he's giving it the come on you irons and all that, right? Really nice note. And he's given me all this stuff. So I wanted to give his company a little plug. Salmon meat sticks. Salmon pate. The dog is not getting the salmon pate. That's going on a cracker later. Salmon oil. Fish skin twists and all this stuff. Anyway, his company, I actually opened the box upside down, but hopefully you should be able to see it. And I just want to give him a little plug here. Skippers, can you see that? Skippers. Jack, thanks, mate. I really, really appreciate that. That's really kind of you. Whatever one I opened, you saw the open pack. He wolfed it down. And, yeah, thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate that. Really, really decent of you. Right, okay, so... I'll put the link in the description below on that, by the way, and that'll be alongside the link for the raffle. We've got a raffle as well. Kevin Nolan's shirt signed, Jared Bowen's shirt signed, Paolo Di Canio armband, or another armband as well. Might be Mark Noble. No, Julian Dix. There you go. £5 per ticket, by the way, for that. So, yeah, go and check it out. Link is in the description below for that. Closes next Wednesday. Buy 2 tickets, get a third free. Really good prizes on that. Anyway. Thanks, everyone. Really, really nice, honestly. I've been overwhelmed over the last few days. And, yeah, Zippy loves that stuff. So thank you very much. Right. I think before we get into the nitty-gritty of what I wanted to talk about today, which was this cash injection, which the board are going to give, and why it's increasingly important now, I think we should probably deal with the daily Mohammed Kudus news. Now, 2 days ago, I tried to run, or was it yesterday? Whenever it was, tried to run a Kudus news, and I got what's called a copyright strike on YouTube, and it well, basically they demonetise the video, so I didn't earn any money off the video, which is a big deal because it's my bloody job, right? So, and the reason being, I'd used this jingle for the news intro, and I thought I quite wanted to do this feature, so I think I found a copyright-free and a royalty-free news jingle, so as I can bring you the very latest Mohammed Kudus news. The reason for doing this, it changes on a daily basis. And if you look at the last, don't go back and watch the last one. This one totally contradicts it. But it's a bit of fun. Otherwise, I'm going to drive you lot mad if I keep doing constant video updates dedicated to just Mohamed Kudus, because it's dragging on a bit. Anyway, right, time for that theme tune, I think. Newcastle United have dropped their interest in West Ham United Ghanaian winger Mohamed Kudus. The North East club had been believed to be chasing the 24-year-old former Ajax player. However, they have now decided to reset their sights on former Manchester United academy graduate and current Nottingham Forest winger Anthony Elanga. This leaves Tottenham Hotspur, Arsenal Athletic, Chelsea Rovers and Manchester United as the remaining contenders for the West Ham United winger's signature. West Ham United, of course, are asking for £65 million sterling, whereas that measly, tight-assed Daniel Levy at Tottenham Hotspur has only offered £50 million. Stay tuned tomorrow for your latest instalment of the Mohamed Kudus news. And that's that. There you go. That really is it. They're not interested. Newcastle are not interested anymore. One less club to do a bidding war. There you go. But here's the point. This sort of brings us back on track. This video, back on track. It didn't start on track. We're going to be putting the train on the track now. This should insulate us now. This should mean that we don't have to get lowballed on a lot of these offers for Kudus or anyone else. And as I alluded to in the previous video, which maybe you watched earlier on, or well, I'm not even sure when I'm going to upload this video actually, this allows us to actually reject offers. Now, one thing that I was always interested in, and I sort of covered this over the last few weeks, was the negotiation that Graham Potter had with the club about this summer's transfer budget. Now, I know Gio did a video about it a couple of days ago, but obviously he wasn't armed necessarily with this latest information. And the information is, because you think, oh, I didn't see the other video. What's the information? It is that West Ham have set a deadline on player sales. So basically, if West Ham don't recoup money by selling Kudus or Alvarez or Agurd, then they're going to put their own money in them, and the board can put in up to £90 million of their own money. The other video argued they should have been doing this bloody stuff anyway, but this makes it more interesting, and a lot more interesting, and I think I can now more understand something that was confusing me. There was a lack of consistency between the transfer negotiations. So one thing we know about Graham Potter is that he negotiated really hard for his contract. See, I find people generally are consistent. People are consistent in the way that they are. So I just found it really, really strange that Potter would be so motivated, a tough negotiator, so precise and so detailed in one part of the negotiations for his job, which was the length of term of his contract, but then be really vague over the other part of it, which was how much transfer budget was he going to be given for this summer. They just don't marry up. If someone is studious, detailed, and a tough negotiator, they'll be that way throughout negotiations. So this never sat comfortably with me. And I do think that the most likely scenario at the time was, and certainly my belief was that West Ham had offered Graham Potter 6 months in terms of the length of contract, basically almost like a caretaker role, and he'd really, really pushed hard to get a 2.5-year deal. Maybe that was a compromise. Maybe Potter wanted a 4-year deal or something like that. I don't know, but maybe that was the compromise. But obviously he'd fought really hard, and we knew the club really wanted the 6-month one. In the end, at least a compromise was met. Maybe Potter won. The other thing he insisted upon was bringing in Carl McCauley as a head of recruitment, and he persuaded West Ham to pay £1 million compensation to Chelsea Rovers Athletic, or whatever I called them earlier, And that's a really big deal. You don't do that if you're not intending on spending money. So I thought if that had been the case, then there's no way he wouldn't have asked for transfer funds, right? That doesn't make any sense. There's no logic to that. So I thought, bearing in mind he had no transfer funds, maybe the club had just lied to him. Maybe the club in those negotiations said, you know what, Graham, here's your 2.5-year deal. Yes, we'll go and get your mate from Chelsea and he can be head of recruitment. And yes, we will give you £80 million in the next window. There you go. So I thought that might have happened. And I just wondered if the further it got towards the transfer window, actually, this stuff that we were hearing, that, actually, we're going to have to sell before we can buy. Oh, by the way, not only have we got to sell before we can buy, if you get £40 million for Lucas Paqueta or whatever, we're going to keep £10 million of it back and give you £30 million. I just thought the information we were getting now must have been very, very different from the information that Potter would have been getting when they were trying to get him to sign on as manager. So I thought maybe he's been duped. Maybe he's just been lied to. The information that we have been given over the last, 24 hours makes a lot more sense. That makes a lot more sense now because it means that actually, what about if all along what I'm about to say now was what was told to Graham Potter. We're going to get to the transfer window and we're going to try and offload some players to boost the transfer budget. If we can't get rid of them early on in June, then what we'll do is we'll convene as a board and we'll make a cash injection into the club. And then we'll make sure that you do have a transfer budget. Because that makes it all very, very different. That really does make it very different indeed. There are a lot of clubs who are waiting for this June 30th deadline. And the June 30th deadline is quite an important one because I believe it's when you move your accounting figures, which makes a difference in PSR, what you do before and what you do after that cut-off point. I do believe it's a 3-year rolling term PSR. So there's a lot of clubs waiting until after June the 30th to start doing business or to sell players, or they have to sell a player before June the 30th, but that means after it they can then buy a player. So there's a little bit of balancing of the books. So I do wonder if Potter was actually told, we're going to give you money. Even if we can't flog anyone, we're going to make sure you get your funds, but you might have to wait until, the 1st of July. Which a lot of managers, I think, are going to be told that anyway. And if that's the case, it suddenly makes sense to me as to why Potter would be quite chilled out about what's happened. Because I'd be doing me nut, right? I really, really would. If put myself in Potter's position, I've taken a job, I've said I'm going to be supported, we get to June, and then the club are saying we've got no money. I'd be thinking of walking away. Potter doesn't need this. I don't know how true this is, but I can't think it'll be completely inaccurate. It's going to be close. Potter had sort of like a 5 or 6 year deal at Chelsea. And his payoff was something like £40 million net. That's huge. Right? That is a huge amount of money. There are lots of people, particularly very, very driven people in business who just carry on going anyway. And something I've never really completely understood. You know what? If someone was to get 25 million, that drive that takes them, do you know what? I'm going to turn this into 50, or I'm going to turn it into 100 million. I think I'd be very much chilling out the moment I've got that first bit of money. So I think it must be hard for some people to keep motivated, and particularly if they feel that if they're not in an advantageous environment where they can succeed. So I think if I was Potter and I had upwards of £40 million in the bank, and I would feel that my employers were lying to me, I think I'm done. I just don't need this stuff anymore. I just don't need it. I'm going. So it didn't really make sense to me that Potter might find himself in this situation where he possibly thought he was being lied to, or he possibly would have felt that he'd been promised money and it just wasn't forthcoming. I thought in that situation I'd have been frustrated. I need to get these. There would have been urgency. I would have wanted to get these transfers done. But Carl Walker's, not Carl Walker, someone different. Carl McCauley's all primed and ready. He's primed. He's ready to go. He's lubed up, and he wants to get busy in the transfer market, right? And I didn't understand why there wasn't more angst, more annoyance from Potter, and I think we got our answers why now. I think this is it. I think it was sort of bloody nice for them, isn't it? Nice for Potter, nice for the club that they've been chilled out. I've not been chilled out. I've been worried about the transfer window with every passing moment. And by the way, let me just say I'm not 100% sure I do fully believe it. I'm still going to wait until we've signed a player or two. But I couldn't help but... Maybe the Harvey Elliott one's not a great example. If you don't know, we've been linked to a £40 million move for Harvey Elliott. He looked brilliant for the under-21s against Holland, didn't he? So maybe that's a bad example. But any idiot, because I'm not sure... It's telling me my computer's going to update. It's very inconvenient. I don't know why it's doing that. It's muted, but the computer's decided, for some reason, that, oh, we're going to bypass your muting, right? We're going to give you notifications. They don't count. They bloody do. Anyway, sorry. I think if we were looking at a player that was £25 million, let's be fair, most of the midfielders we've been looking at have been about £25 million. I suddenly started looking at it a little bit differently, thinking, hold on a second, we can do this. I started to believe it a little bit more. And I think that's important because I hadn't believed anything up to this point. Now, the proof of the pudding's in the tasting, right? That they're going to have to show that they mean business, the board. They're going to have to give him the money. And there'll be no bigger sign of intent than if we haven't sold a Gurge yet, we haven't sold Edson Alvarez, and we haven't sold Kudus, but we go out and we go and buy whoever. Yunus Musa. There you go. There's one name. Like him. Good player, by the way. Really, really like that guy. That would show us, wouldn't it? That would show us. Because I've not been particularly chilled out about it. But I just wonder if that has been the answer. And it's something I've discussed with Gio on a couple of occasions. There's no surprise to see him do a video about it because we've discussed it. What was Potter promised? What was he told in January when he took the job? Because I don't think he'd have taken it. I think if they'd have said to him, Graham, we'd like you to take the West Ham manager's job, whatever the first question you're going to ask is how much money do I have to spend? Oh, well, actually, it might be the second. Maybe how much you're going to pay me might be the first. But the second one would be how much we've got to spend. I just found it very, very hard to think, because you've got to remember, apparently Potter had already turned down Leicester and he'd turned down Wolves. So he'd already shown himself perfectly capable of being able to look at a set of circumstances thinking, I don't want that. I'm going to wait for the right opportunity. So none of it made sense. And now it does. I do believe he'd been promised funds. Funds to spend right now this summer. Whether he'd get them or not, I don't know.